Lurking in the deep oceans of our world is one of the world's most dominant predators, the great white shark. They are the biggest fish on the planet, rousing fear and awe in equal measure. Truly, they are one of nature's crowning achievements. However, they have a reputation for showing up unannounced and bringing chaos with them, as one group would soon come to find out. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying shark attack on Heather Boswell. Welcome to Final Affliction. Heather Boswell was working on a 6-month term in the galley of the Discoverer. The Discoverer was a U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration research ship, voyaging 30 nautical miles off Isla Sala y Gomez and 300 miles east of Easter Island. The date was March 23, 1994, and the mood was a joyous one, as the crew had been given a day off. Some crew members decided to sleep in, while a few of the more adventurous members decided to take an open ocean swim. There was a collective cheer as 9 of the crew members stripped off and jumped into the crystal clear water. Among them were Heather Boswell and Phil Buffington. The group swam and snorkeled, enjoying the freedom of the open, balmy waters. 3 other crew members were monitoring the swimmers in the water from a rigid inflatable boat. At the same time, another watched from aboard the Discoverer ship, scanning the open ocean for deep-sea predators. For almost 90 minutes, the 9 were having the time of their lives, somersaulting through the water, before someone shouted, "Shark!" Heather and most of the crew brushed it as a joke and continued swimming, but they were wrong. One of the ocean's deadliest predators had its beady eyes set on crew member Phil Buffington. Had Phil not brushed the warning, or at the very least looked beneath the clear waters, he would have seen the 18-foot black shadow of the great white shark below him. The massive beast stealthily sized him before positioning itself just below him, and then it struck. The shark's powerful jaws clamped down on his thigh near the knee and tried to drag him underwater, where it would show him who was boss. Phil was shaken. The shark had caught him completely off guard. Amidst the excruciating pain and fear, he mastered courage and quickly landed a blow on the shark's head, which sent it spiraling away as it let go of his foot. The others saw the incident, and since they didn't want to become this vicious creature's next victim, they quickly began swimming to safety, something they should have done at the very first warning. Again, someone yelled a warning of a shark. This time around, no one was taking any chances with their lives. They swam towards safety, but unfortunately, all did not make it on board, as it was a bit too late for Heather Boswell, who was 25 feet from the rest of the crew. She had wandered too far from the ship. The monitor watching from aboard the ship saw the great white swim toward Boswell. The other crew members, who had already swam to safety, watched as the shark submerged. It then shot up from the depths and, with its massive jaws wide open, grabbed Boswell by the right ankle. A crew member on the rigid inflatable boat threw a broom handle for Boswell to grab, but before Boswell was completely out of the water, and just when they thought that it was over, the great white struck again. The shark sunk its serrated teeth into Boswell's left leg about mid-thigh and then pulled her back into the water. The water around her turned red, colored by her blood. And then suddenly, all went silent. The shark had disappeared under the surface, and Boswell was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, the ocean was dead. Nothing moved. And then, after what seemed like an eternity, a loud splash tore the silence. Boswell wasn't ready to go down without a fight. She had beaten all odds and managed to resurface. The petrified crew members on the boat grabbed her hands as they attempted to pull her on board. Unfortunately for Boswell, the great white still had its sharp teeth deep in her flesh and wasn't ready to let go. What followed was a tug-of-war with the crew trying to free Boswell from the jaws of death. Suddenly, Boswell heard a pop sound and hoped that it was just a dislocation of her leg as the crew managed to pull her onto the safety of the boat. She let out a sigh of relief. She was finally free. Meanwhile, a shark attack warning had already been broadcasted on the Discoverer ship's PA system. A crew member cleaning his pistol after a target practice heard the broadcast and rushed to see what the commotion was all about. He saw the shark swimming towards someone climbing the ship's ladder and without hesitation fired several rounds at the great white. The shark veered away as it swam towards the stern of the ship. The crew member followed it and fired 2 more rounds, and he watched as the shark became motionless. He had killed the monstrous predator. Heather Boswell, who was lying on the boat, trying to catch her breath, was yet to come to the realization of her state. A stinging sensation from her left leg made her look at her thighs, and that was when it dawned on her that her left leg was missing. The pop sound she had heard earlier was the shark parting with her leg. With her brain now processing the information, her nervous system woke from slumber and the pain kicked in. She was hoisted from the inflatable boat to the ship, where a crew member used his belt as a tourniquet. Phil Buffington was immediately escorted below deck as his feet were throbbing in pain. While his injuries were not as fatal as Boswell's, his left thigh had several gashes, while his right knee and thigh had deep puncture wounds. Medics had to sew him with 50 stitches. At the sickbay, Heather Boswell's left leg had been severed mid-thigh. Her right leg had large gashes and puncture wounds. She had lost blood in large volumes and was in a state of shock. By the time she was placed on the bed, she was cold and unresponsive with no heartbeat. The medics immediately administered IV fluids, and shortly a pulse was detected. By evening, she was stable and fairly made it through the night. At 7 a.m. the following day, the crew prepared her for medical evacuation to a medical facility on land. They turned her on her side, ready to shift her to a stretcher, but the 130-pound Boswell was in such a fragile state that she collapsed. The Holter monitor went haywire as she lost all her measurable blood pressure. Her breathing then became shallow, and the medical team immediately repositioned her. They then did CPR and a sternum rub as she slowly resuscitated and restabilized. The medical team from land arrived on the ship and decided the best way to move Boswell was by the rigid inflatable boat. She was placed aboard the boat and then lowered off the ship and onto the water. Boswell was then taken to a local clinic before being transported to Panama, where she underwent surgery at an Army hospital. The crew members, whose quick actions helped save Heather Boswell's life, received awards and medals of honor and bravery. Heather Boswell fully recovered from her puncture wounds, but had to wear a prosthesis on her left leg for the rest of her life. When asked what it is like being eaten by a shark, she noted that it didn't hurt as much as she expected, but felt like a puppy chewing on your finger. Her incredible survival story is by far the most detailed, deadly attack of a great white shark, and was thus no shock that it was featured on the Discovery Channel's Shark Week. Millions of people around the world were amazed by Heather's story of how she narrowly escaped a great white shark attack, as well as her final affliction.